Remember when fast food was wild, weird, and way cheaper? Before McDonald's took over, there were burger barns, beer-steamed hot dogs, and chicken chains that disappeared fast. Some were huge, until they weren't. Let's take a trip back in time and remember 15 forgotten fast food chains lost in time. First off, Burger Chef. In the golden age of American fast food, Burger Chef stood as a titan among giants. With over 1,200 locations at its peak, this burger powerhouse was once McDonald's fiercest competitor. While today's kids might squeal with delight at the prospect of a Happy Meal toy, they have Burger Chef to thank for the concept. Long before Ronald McDonald got into the toy business, Burger Chef pioneered the first kids' meal called the Fun Meal, complete with toys and special packaging that made mealtime an adventure for the whole family. Burger Chef wasn't just about catering to children. They introduced the Works Bar, where customers could customize their burgers with an array of toppings, an early version of the build-your-own concept that chains like Five Guys would later popularize. Their signature sandwich, the Big Chef, rivaled the Big Mac in both size and popularity, sparking what some food historians call the first true burger wars of American fast food. Despite their innovation, poor management decisions began to plague the company by the mid-1970s. The fatal blow came when they were purchased by General Foods, a company with little experience running restaurants. By 1982, most locations were sold off to Hardee's, and the Burger Chef name slowly faded from American roadsides, leaving behind only memories and a handful of nostalgic TV commercials that occasionally resurface online. Howard Johnson's The distinctive orange roof and turquoise spire of Howard Johnson's restaurants were once as much a part of the American landscape as white picket fences. Hard as it may be to believe, Hojo's wasn't just another restaurant chain. It was the largest restaurant chain in America for decades, boasting over 1,000 locations in its heyday. The company that started as a humble ice cream stand in Quincy, Massachusetts, became the cornerstone of American road trip dining. Howard Johnson's claim to fame wasn't speed, it was variety and quality. Their legendary 28 flavors of ice cream predated the creative concoctions of Ben and Jerry's by half a century. While other chains were focusing on burgers and fries, Hojo's offered everything from their famous fried clams to tender sweet frankfurters. The decline of Howard Johnson's parallels the rise of America's interstate highway system and the faster food joints that popped up along these new roads. As families began prioritizing speed over experience, Hojo's sit-down model became increasingly outdated. The final Hojo's restaurant, located in Lake George, New York, closed its doors in 2017, marking the end of an era in American dining. For baby boomers, the memory of sliding into an orange booth at Howard Johnson's remains a cherished piece of Americana that no modern fast food experience has quite replicated. Red Barn. You didn't need a map to find a Red Barn restaurant. You just looked for the actual barn. In a stroke of marketing genius, Red Barn built their restaurants in the shape of bright red barns, complete with the distinctive sloped roof and cupola. This agricultural theme chain spread across North America with over 400 locations during the 1960s and 1970s, bringing a touch of rural charm to even the most urban settings. Red Barn's menu featured cleverly named items that stuck to the farming theme. Their signature burger, the Big Barney, arrived years before McDonald's Big Mac and featured 2 beef patties, special sauce, and toppings that made it a formidable competitor in the burger wars. For those with a bigger appetite, there was the Barn Buster, which pushed the envelope of how much food could legally be piled onto a single bun. Their television jingle, "When the Hungries hit the Red Barn," became an earworm for an entire generation. Despite its clever concept and loyal following, Red Barn suffered from poor management decisions and ownership changes. The parent company, Servomation, was acquired by Motel 6, which had little interest in running a restaurant chain. Without proper leadership, Red Barn locations began closing throughout the late 1970s, and by the mid-1980s, the chain had all but disappeared from the American landscape, leaving customers wondering where their next Barn Buster would come from. Today, a handful of former Red Barn buildings still dot the countryside, repurposed as everything from local restaurants to insurance offices, their distinctive barn shape serving as an architectural reminder of this once thriving chain. A perfect snapshot of America's fast food history that continues to trigger waves of nostalgia for those who remember the taste of their farm-fresh burgers. Sambo's. Before there was IHOP or Denny's on every corner, Sambo's dominated the breakfast scene in America. Starting as a single pancake house in Santa Barbara, California, this chain exploded across the country, reaching an impressive 1,117 locations in its glory days. Their success formula was simple: affordable breakfast served all day, comfortable booths, and a family-friendly atmosphere. The name Sambo's came from combining the names of its founders, Sam Battistone and Newell Bonnet. However, many Americans associated it with the controversial children's book Little Black Sambo. Despite the founders' insistence that the name connection was coincidental, the restaurant leaned into the association by decorating their walls with scenes from the story. As the civil rights movement gained momentum in the 1970s, the name became increasingly problematic. Management tried to rebrand some restaurants as Jolly Tiger or No Place Like Sam's, but the damage was done. The company filed for bankruptcy in 1981, and most locations either closed or were sold off to other chains. The downfall of Sambo's wasn't just about its name. The company expanded too quickly and took on massive debt. When high interest rates hit in the late 1970s, they couldn't keep up with payments. Today, just one Sambo's remains in Santa Barbara, a relic of a chain that once had more locations than Burger King did at that time. Lums, hot dogs steamed in beer. If that sounds like something invented by a college student at 2 in the morning, you're not far off. But this odd cooking method became the foundation for Lums, a casual restaurant chain that grew to over 400 locations nationwide. Their beer-soaked hot dogs became so famous that people would drive for miles just to try one, proving that sometimes the weirdest food ideas become the most beloved. Founded by Stuart and Clifford Perlman in Miami, Florida, Lums started as a hot dog stand but quickly evolved into a full-service restaurant. Their hot dogs weren't the only draw. The Ollie Burger, named after the chef who created its special seasoning, developed a cult following of its own. The restaurants featured dark wood paneling, stained glass, and a cozy pub-like atmosphere. The beginning of the end came when the Perlman brothers sold Lums in 1971 to the same company that owned Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas for $4 million. The new owners knew casinos but struggled with restaurants. After several more ownership changes, the chain began to collapse. Locations shut down one by one throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s. The last Lums held out until 2009 in Bellevue, Nebraska, serving those famous beer-steamed hot dogs until the very end. While the recipe has been lost to history, rumors persist that some former employees still make them at home, keeping the taste alive even if the restaurants themselves are long gone. Henry's Hamburgers. When you think of fast food giants, McDonald's probably springs to mind first, but there was a time when Henry's Hamburgers had more locations than the Golden Arches. Founded as a spin-off business by the Breslers Ice Cream Company, Henry's exploded across America with a simple business model: sell delicious 10-cent hamburgers and watch the money roll in. At its peak in the early 1960s, Henry's boasted over 200 locations compared to McDonald's 150. Their menu was refreshingly simple: hamburgers, cheeseburgers, fries, and Breslers ice cream. No fancy sauces or complicated ordering systems, just straightforward, tasty fast food served in paper wrappers. Many locations featured car hop service, where young servers would bring food directly to your car window. So what happened? In one word, drive-thrus. While Henry's was perfecting car hop service, McDonald's was pioneering the drive-thru window. Customers increasingly preferred the speed and privacy of the drive-thru to the car hop experience. By the late 1960s, Henry's was already losing ground, and the oil crisis of the 1970s delivered the knockout punch. Today, just one Henry's Hamburgers remains operational in Benton Harbor, Michigan, serving the original recipe burgers to nostalgic customers and curious food tourists. The lone survivor stands as a time capsule of 1950s Americana, proof that sometimes staying small and true to your roots is the secret to longevity in the fast food world. Gino's Hamburgers. Football and fast food might seem like an odd combination, but it proved to be a winning recipe for Gino's Hamburgers. Founded by Baltimore Colts defensive end Gino Marchetti, along with several teammates, this chain brought star power to the burger business decades before celebrity restaurants became trendy. Who could resist a burger endorsed by football heroes? The chain started in Baltimore, but quickly expanded throughout the East Coast. eventually reaching more than 350 locations. Their signature sandwich, the Gino Giant, featured the slogan, "Everybody goes for a giant at Gino's," and gave the Big Mac some serious competition. What made Gino's unique was the blend of fast food and sports culture. Restaurants were decorated with football memorabilia, and occasional visits from Colts players made dinner at Gino's an event. Gino's secured the first Kentucky Fried Chicken franchises in the region, making many Gino's restaurants combination establishments serving both burgers and the Colonel's famous chicken. This dual-menu approach boosted profits and helped the chain expand rapidly through the 1960s and early 1970s. The success story came to an end in 1982 when Marriott Corporation purchased Gino's for $48 million and converted most locations into Roy Rogers restaurants. The football players who had become restaurant moguls cashed out, and the Gino's name disappeared from the landscape. White Tower. If imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, then White Castle should have felt extremely flattered by White Tower. This copycat chain didn't just borrow ideas. They essentially photocopied the entire White Castle concept from the building design right down to the employee uniforms. White Tower's founders took one look at White Castle's success with small square burgers served in distinctive white buildings and thought, let's do exactly that, but change one word in the name. The audacity worked, at least for a while. White Tower expanded to over 230 locations, primarily in the Midwest and East Coast. Their sliders cost just 5 cents in the early days, making them affordable even during the Great Depression. The buildings featured distinctive white exteriors with castle-like turrets, a design that made them easily recognizable from blocks away. White Castle wasn't amused by the flattery and sued White Tower in 1937 for copyright infringement. The court ordered White Tower to change its building design and stop copying White Castle's marketing materials. This forced rebranding, combined with changing food trends after World War II, started the chain's slow decline. Unlike many other forgotten chains, White Tower didn't disappear in a dramatic bankruptcy. Instead, it slowly faded away, location by location, throughout the 1970s. The last White Tower closed in Toledo, Ohio in 2004, ending a 78-year run of burger imitation. Dog and Suds. Nothing captures the carefree spirit of 1950s. America quite like a drive-in restaurant, and Dog and Suds perfected the formula. This chain specialized in two American classics, hot dogs and root beer, served directly to your car window by car hops, often on roller skates. At its peak, over 600 Dog and Suds locations dotted the American landscape, turning parking lots into social hubs where teenagers would gather in their cars. The chain began as a single location in Champaign, Illinois, founded by two music teachers looking for a summer business. Their homemade root beer recipe became so popular that they abandoned teaching to focus on expansion. Dog and Suds grew through a franchise model that allowed local entrepreneurs to bring the concept to their communities, spreading rapidly through the Midwest. What made Dog and Suds special wasn't just the food, but the experience. The car hop would attach a metal tray to your car window, and you could enjoy your meal without ever leaving your vehicle. Their Texas burger, Coney dog, and signature creamy root beer created a simple but irresistible menu that kept customers coming back. As driving culture faded in the 1970s, replaced by drive-through service, Dog and Suds began to struggle. The original owners sold the company, and under new management, the chain contracted rapidly. Today, about 17 locations survive as independently owned restaurants, still serving that famous root beer in frosty mugs, proving that sometimes nostalgia is the most powerful flavor of all. Biff Burger. The name Biff stood for Best in Fast Food. This confident claim backed up a chain that pioneered the flame-broiled burger long before Burger King made it their signature cooking style. Using a patented cooking machine called the Roto Broiler, Biff Burger cooked their patties over open flames that gave them a distinctive charbroiled taste that many customers still remember decades later. From its Florida origins, Biff Burger spread across the eastern United States, eventually reaching roughly 200 locations during the 1960s. Their restaurants featured a distinctive pagoda-style roof design with bright red and white colors that made them easily spotted from the highway. The menu was straightforward: burgers, fries, and milkshakes, but the flavor was memorable enough to inspire devoted fans who still talk about these burgers with reverence. What caused Biff Burger to flame out? The lack of consistent branding didn't help. Some locations were called Biff Burger, others Biff's, and still others operated as Beef Burger. This fragmented identity confused customers and made national marketing nearly impossible. As larger chains poured millions into TV advertising, Biff Burger couldn't compete with its mixed-up messaging and gradually lost market share. By the late 1970s, most Biff Burger locations had shut down or converted to other restaurants. Today, just one restaurant using the Biff name still operates in St. Petersburg, Florida, though it's independently owned and not connected to the original chain. The legacy of their flame-broiled technique lives on in many modern fast food establishments. Sandy's, a burger chain with a Scottish theme might sound odd, but Sandy's embraced tartan plaids, bagpipes in their ads, and a mascot named Sandy dressed in full Scottish attire. The chain began when several disgruntled McDonald's franchisees decided to break away and start their own restaurant concept, bringing their fast food know-how to a new brand with a Highland twist. The Scottish theme wasn't just a random choice, it was a deliberate attempt to stand out from other burger joints. At its peak, Sandy's had grown to over 200 locations throughout the Midwest, with particularly strong presence in Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri. Their thick burgers and Scottish treat desserts built a loyal following among families looking for affordable meals in a unique setting. Unlike many failed chains, Sandy's wasn't necessarily in trouble when it disappeared. In 1972, the company agreed to a merger with Hardee's, another growing burger chain with a similar menu. The merger made business sense, creating a larger company that could better compete with industry giants, but it meant the end of the Sandy's brand. By 1979, the last Sandy's restaurant had either closed or converted to a Hardee's. The Scottish-themed burger joint has been mostly forgotten, though some Midwesterners still recall the distinctive sandwich wrappers with their red plaid design and the catchy jingles that played on local radio stations. Carrols. The story of Carrols is a tale of reinvention rather than failure. This chain began as Carrols drive-in restaurants in the Syracuse, New York area, serving a menu that might look familiar to anyone who's ever eaten at a diner: burgers, hot dogs, seafood, and ice cream. Their mascot, a cartoon boy with a giant hamburger for a head, appeared on signs and in commercials, smiling despite having a burger for a face. With over 150 locations across the Northeast and Puerto Rico, Carrols built a substantial following. Their club burger, a clear answer to competitor signature sandwiches, developed a fan base of its own. The restaurant interiors featured a distinctive orange and brown color scheme that screamed 1970s style, complete with wood paneling and molded plastic seats that defined the era's aesthetic. Rather than fading away like many chains on this list, Carrols made a strategic pivot. In 1976, the company converted most of its restaurants into Burger King franchises. This wasn't a defeat, but a deliberate business move that transformed Carrols Corporation from a restaurant brand into one of the largest restaurant operators in America. The Carrols name itself disappeared from restaurant signs, but the company behind it thrived by becoming the largest Burger King franchisee in the United States. It's perhaps the most successful failure in fast food history, a brand that disappeared by choice rather than necessity, trading its own identity for the power of a bigger brand while maintaining its business acumen behind the scenes. Royal Castle. While White Castle dominated the mini burger scene in the North, Royal Castle ruled the South. Founded in Miami during the Great Depression, this chain grew to 175 locations across Florida, Georgia, Ohio, and Louisiana. Their slogan, "Fit for a King," perfectly captured their royal ambitions in the fast food kingdom. Royal Castle perfected the art of the slider, small square burgers steamed over onions and served on soft buns. At just 15 cents each in their early days, these mini burgers were an affordable luxury during tough economic times. To wash down those sliders, Royal Castle offered their signature birch beer, a fizzy drink similar to root beer, but with a distinctly different flavor that became the chain's secret weapon against competitors. Despite loyal customers, Royal Castle began struggling in the 1960s as larger national chains expanded into their territory. The company was sold in 1969, and under new ownership, most locations shut down throughout the 1970s. Only one authentic Royal Castle remains today, operating in Miami and serving those same sliders and birch beer to nostalgic customers. Tops Drive-In. The sign said Tops, and the name wasn't lying, at least when it came to portion sizes. This Midwestern chain built its reputation on massive burgers and overflowing baskets of fries that left customers so stuffed they could barely waddle back to their cars. Tops Drive-In emerged during the golden age of American car culture, when having a meal delivered to your vehicle felt like the height of modern convenience. Tops specialized in big boy-style double-decker hamburgers topped with special sauce, creating a messy but satisfying eating experience that required multiple napkins. Their driving concept was enhanced by car hops, often young women on roller skates who would zip from car to car, taking and delivering orders with theatrical flair. The decline of drive-in culture in the early 1970s spelled doom for Tops. As Americans embraced fast food restaurants with indoor seating and drive-through windows, the classic drive-in model began to seem outdated. By the late 1970s, virtually all Tops locations had closed. Minnie Pearl's Fried Chicken. What happens when a famous country comedian lends her name to a fried chicken chain? In the case of Minnie Pearl's Fried Chicken, you get one of the most spectacular flameouts in fast food history. This chain opened over 500 locations in just 2 years, an expansion rate that makes even modern startup growth look glacial by comparison. The restaurants featured the comedian's signature straw hat with a price tag dangling from it, just like her stage costume. The business plan was simple: capitalize on the success of other fried chicken chains by offering a similar product with a country celebrity endorsement. What went wrong? Practically everything. Most locations opened without proper training or quality control. The recipe wasn't standardized, so the chicken tasted different at every restaurant. Many franchisees were sold territories that hadn't been properly researched. Most critically, the accounting was so messy that the company was charged with stock fraud. By 1970, most locations had closed, and the company filed for bankruptcy in 1971. The spectacular failure was so infamous that business schools studied it as a case of how not to expand a restaurant chain. The chain's rapid collapse stands as one of the fastest and most dramatic implosions in fast food history. These 15 forgotten fast food chains represent a fascinating chapter in American culinary history. Though they've disappeared from our highways and strip malls, their innovations and failures continue to influence the fast food landscape we know today.